Welcome. You are at the CCC.
Where there are no outside issues. I'm Anthony. I'm a 7th-year doctoral student in clinical psych, an addict and an alcoholic, another bozo on the bus, and I care about you.
And I'm LouiLou, and my pronouns are he and him. I am a former Miss Castro Country Club. Yes, Miss Castro Country Club. And I'm in recovery for crystal meth and alcohol, and I am always in search of balance. And each week we will provide and create a brave space where we can engage in conversations around topics of recovery.
Our intention is to hold and inspire better spaces for more people in recovery by tackling issues sometimes used to separate us.
Yes, but before we do that, please like, share, and comment on this episode. Ding that bell.
And now the disclaimer. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed on at the CCC are ours alone. We do not represent anyone but ourselves. The material and information shared here is for general information purposes only. In other words, we are just friends behind a mic here to entertain you.
Yes.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm okay.
How are you? How are you?
It's so funny to answer that question after like our semi-serious conversation for 10 minutes because I'm like, all right, pull it together, Anthony. Pull it together. But I'm doing really. I'm well. I'm really happy right now.
Right on.
Writing.
I've just been having. This has been I don't want to say emotional. It's just been an interesting week. An interesting week because it's like I've been processing. Life's showing up, and I'm having to kind of try to do those things that I need to do with as much grace as possible. And we were kind of joking about it before, but it's like I'm not one to always give my stuff to other people. I mean, recovery has kind of helped me do it a little more, but I have my people, and the gift is that group is expanding, but I'm very kind of like, yeah, this is mine. I'm not giving it to somebody who might not be able to appreciate it, and in turn, kind of use it the wrong way.
Gosh, that wise words. Yeah. And then you're just saying how you're doing, but yeah, those are wise words. I once had a boss say to me, this is like first time I had like my first like professional gig after college, and she said, Anthony, not everyone can hold your vulnerability for you, so you shouldn't give that to everyone. And I thought, wow, wise words. Well, I feel like that's a really nice dovetail to today's topic.
Hell, we've been doing this for some time. Everything's a knife.
Everything is,
and that's a great segue.
And that is a great segue. And this is how we get to start talking about other things. So today's topic is speaking your mind.
Absolutely.
Right. So you can interpret this in a bunch of different ways, but basically it's when you have something you want to say or something that's on your chest and you keep it in and you don't let it out, and all the different ways that might show up. So before we started talking with the camera rolling, we were talking about what was coming to mind for us.
Well, it's really funny. I reached out to Anthony because Bonnie Violet, she does a lot of our advertising, and it popped up and it said, "Speaking your mind." I'm like, what the hell? What was that about? And so I reached out to Anthony and said, what were we thinking?
And my reply was, this was your idea.
Womp, womp, womp.
But the idea came out of a conversation where we were talking about when you're with your friends, setting boundaries or asking for what you want. And I remember you saying wait, why don't we talk about that? Why don't we talk about why is it that, a person might not speak up, and what does it take to speak up, and what does it look like?
Absolutely.
So what I was thinking of were the different reasons why I have historically in certain situations not spoken up, right? And sometimes it's fear that I might alienate friends, or it may be fear that I'm gonna lose connections with people. It might be safety. I can remember just being
fear of punishment.
Yeah. Fear of punishment. Uncertainty,
absolutely.
Just not being sure of my own ideas.
Yeah, because of being insecure and thinking if I open my mouth, they say it's it's better to keep your mouth closed and have people think you're a fool than open your mouth and prove them right.
Right. Right. I can remember there was a time, it was very many years ago. I was at a leadership summit. I think I was in high school or something like that. And I was at this conference, and I remember disagreeing with like the bulk of what was being said at this conference. And I boldly, to give you a glimpse into who I was as a teenager, raised my hand and I asked for the last 5 minutes of the mic.
Oh.
And I said, can I have the last 5 minutes of the mic? And
you specifically said, I want 5 minutes.
I said, yeah, 5 minutes of the end of the mic. And everyone was looking around and they were like, well, do we let him do it? And I went up and I spoke my mind and I was asked to stand outside because I had upset a couple of guys in the room.
Oh.
And they, I guess, wanted to fight me.
Oh.
So I was asked to stand outside of the room. But I remember thinking, like, when I was a kid, there was just, this was around the time after I came out, actually. So I came out when I was 14. And when I came out, there was a part of me that, like, I was just so fucking done lying. You know what I mean? I was so done feeling trapped in my body that, like, something was just set off. I was like, no, I have to, that's it. There's going to be more than one type of coming out after this because I just didn't like feeling suffocated.
No, I was thinking, I love that because when something that happens, I think, to a lot of people in recovery or where, like, you get to a place when I came in, that voice that I had or I thought that I had, it was so muted. It was so kind of, I was wounded, whatever, and I wasn't able to speak up. And over a period of time, doing the work and kind of acquainting myself with who I am, I found my voice. But I think in finding it initially, like you were talking about, it's going to come out messy. It's not going to be all tidy. And I think that one of the blessings about the fellowship or the connections that we have here is that, and the country club, the Castro Country Club, I was able to have that messiness and work through it and figure out, find a way to kind of channel it for good.
Well, I like something that you said earlier when we were out there. Remember when you were saying, like, we were talking about getting your point across, right? And having to evaluate, like, okay, what is my goal in this particular communication, right? Like, if you're out with a bunch of people you've never met before and there's a disagreement, do you really think you're, like, infused, you're angry, your maybe, like, just charged response is going to change any mind?
Absolutely. It's like, if you don't check your motives in having the conversation, like I think I was talking about, there are certain conversations I don't have with people. I don't have, I will have these conversations with folks that I trust can have adult conversations and be willing to validate points back and forth. And there are a lot of people that I know who have that level of maturity, but it's like online and social media. I'm not going to get on and argue with somebody who's hiding behind a keyboard, who is basically their rebut is just going to be, you're fat or you're stupid or you're black, you're real black, yeah, okay, I'm blackity black. It's
yeah. I was thinking about I didn't want to burp into the mic, where I was thinking about how, like, my motives have always exposed themselves.
Oh yeah,
right. So I could, man, like, this happened years ago. So I think I was, like, maybe my first year back into recovery. No, it was first few months back into recovery. Okay. And there was this guy who had been on my 4th step for, like, the longest time.
I'm so glad I got off your 4th step.
Bitch, it wasn't you. Okay. You weren't even on my radar.
Oh.
No, that's not true. You know you're a big part of it.
I am a non-motherfucking factor.
No, I absolutely. Wait, you've never been on my 4th step. Anyway, the point is that I had, like, this very kind of, like, tumultuous relationship with someone in the program. And I, like, was feeling rejected anyway. It was just, the whole thing was fucking messy. And so I remember talking to my sponsor at the time, and I asked her, I said, hey, like, I feel like I should make an amends to this person. And she says to me, you're not on amends. Like, you're not even, like, you're literally on step 2. Like, why? You're not on amends. And so what did I do? I, like, reached out to this guy. And I had made an amends, but, like, my motive had exposed himself because the amends was not well received. It was basically, like, tossed back my way. And I remember thinking to myself, ooh, oh, this hurts.
Ow, ow.
Oh, yeah. Ouch. And I remember, and I spoke with my sponsor, and she was like, what did you think was going to happen? What were you hoping was going to happen? Because clearly, like, that's what's blowing up in your face right now. so yeah, I feel like the motives also they always expose themselves. But yeah, the point of, I think, one of the things that I've thought about, like with the point of like speaking my mind is, older, and I don't know if this is entirely, well, maybe it's entirely about recovery, but like I feel like a big part of it is like I've learned that one of the benefits of being honest and speaking my mind is that I get to kind of create a world that is for me,
Uh-huh.
right? As long as I'm lying to people, as long as I'm like adjusting so that you like me, I basically create a prison within myself.
Absolutely.
Right. And what's been amazing is that as I've been more open about, like, say, like feelings or fears or like thoughts or insecurities, is that I've created pathways for people to me. Like
Absolutely.
if I'm lying, those are the paths that I'm creating to me, are like people who are like taking this road that they think they belong on, but
Uh-huh.
it has nothing to do with who I truly am.
Absolutely. No, I'm listening.
No, I know you're listening. I thought you had some ideas.
No,
No ideas.
no.
Yeah.
I have ideas, but I'm listening.
Okay. So I love that we just had that whole process. Well, but I think about you, like the more honest I am, and the honesty for me, at least where I am in my life right now, is like it's stuff that makes me really fucking uncomfortable. It's like the shit that makes me want to cry. Like I feel like I've been in that state a lot recently, where I've just been, like I said, I've been working on a 4th step in Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, and like that's brought some shit to the surface that's made me feel really fucking like vulnerable and like just so tender. And what's been really scary has been to say those things out loud, like either to my sponsor or the person I've been seeing. And what's been really great is that I think part of what's been wonderful about having, like, building relationships with such beautiful people is that it's been well received, and I feel like held and contained. Where like when I was drinking and using, no one gave a fuck. You know what I mean? Like no one, like my relationships were so superficial when I was drinking.
Yeah.
Like
No, absolutely.
one of the things I would think a lot of is like, I don't even know these people's last names.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like when we're out in the bar, like, or at a club, we're acting like we are the bestest friends we've ever had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I always thought like, to speak to that, it's like I would always say it's like everybody in your life has a purpose. I mean, it sounded really bad, but at the time it was transactional, but it changes and it's still true. Everybody in your life has a purpose. There's something about why we connect when we work well together. If we don't have it, maybe there's someone else you can have that with. But it's like, I was thinking while you were saying, it's like, so a gift of recovery or early recovery for me, and it was a struggle in the beginning, and it's tied to speaking your mind, like to be able to talk about what you want to talk about or what you're passionate about, and finding your voice in it. When you surround yourself with people who maybe aren't able to hear it or who don't want to hear it or whatever, that's a great way for me to sort through bullshit. I can understand if I'm using all of that to be manipulative, or if I'm one of these people, like we have a fellow in the program who, God bless this child, but they are really, like most of us, they're really kind of self-centered and about themselves, and can take a conversation and bring it right back to them. And it's like, girl, calm down. But when you're able to kind of have a conversation, when you're able to kind of talk, and if you come in and you're passionate about issues of race and whatever, and this is for me, like an example, and you're around people and their eyes are glazing over every time you start talking, I don't want to have that be the reason why I don't talk about what
matters to you.
Matters to me right now, because like I said before, and like I heard someone else say, if it has the ability to affect my serenity, then by all means, I get to work the steps around it.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. It's like, what is the point? Like when I say something, like, what is the point? Like, does there always need to be a point to why I'm like speaking, right? And like, what does it really mean to like speak your mind, right? I think on one end, to me, it's like I think about. Well, I love that you said your interest, because that's a really kind of positive way of framing this conversation. And by the way, if you're listening at home and something's coming up, let us know.
Yeah, speak your mind.
Speak your mind. First comment is like, "Fuck you, Louis,"
and I'm all, thank you.
I love it. Thank you for speaking your mind.
I respect.
So I was thinking about like when I was younger, I was afraid of telling people what my interests were because I didn't think that they would like them, and I wanted people to hang out with me. God, I was
Absolutely.
such a sad kid. So I wouldn't talk about what my interests were. And so over time, like as you get older, then you don't know what your interests are
Exactly.
because you're so busy kind of adjusting to the world.
Oh,
Or yeah, adjusting and adapting to the world. And fast forward, and like one of the coolest things that I think came from coming back into the rooms was, I don't remember what it was, but I remember I had this realization that I spent a lot of time by myself and at home.
mhm.
And I was like, what? Like, this is crazy. And I would think about like people who have hobbies and things that they do. And I was like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Other than like school or things like related to that. Like, what do I do? Like, what? And I was like, oh, and this is how I discovered that I liked playing games.
Uh-huh.
That I remember, like, I was like, oh my God, when I was a kid, I loved playing games. I've always loved playing games. And that's how my obsession with escape rooms started, because I always wanted to like do an escape room. And I did one escape room. And I remember thinking to myself, I love this. I should continue to do this thing. And it's been over 100 escape rooms later. But the point is that as a result of doing that one thing, like I have like I formed an entire community around
Absolutely.
something that brings me a lot of joy.
Well, I think it takes us a while to realize that it's not that we need to change people around us. We need to just be who we are, be as honest and open, as authentic as we can be. And the ones who we like you said, you build a community up around that.
What do you think stands in the way? Because I feel like really what we're talking about is like what stands in the way of people being authentic. And because we can't speak to like people, let's maybe stick to ourselves. Obviously, what do you think? What are those moments? What do those moments look like when you're not being authentic?
Well, okay, so I think outside of recovery, like with recovery, specifically 12 steps, if I have a sponsor and relationships that I trust and I'm doing the work to try to become better, or if I'm in therapy or whatever, if I'm not doing those things and I don't know that I need those things or that those things are open to me, I think that it's almost like, and I don't want to be flip comparing it to maybe an abusive relationship where you're in it and you don't know how to get out of it because or this is how things are and you don't know because you've maybe forgotten that there are other ways of being. I think that's to me is one of the challenges. Like you're not surrounding yourself with folks who are showing through their actions that maybe everybody around you kind of is in that same sleep that you're in. And so I could see that being a reason why that you're not seeing it as you're not seeing it as something that you can do because there are no examples of it being done.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, maybe not exactly, but I have a sense of what you're saying. Um, I guess to paraphrase what you're saying is, it's hard to be authentic if you're not in an environment that either invites that or conducive to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just like when young gay folks, especially in areas that are not San Francisco, when you don't have uh when you don't have examples, not even on TV, like the examples that you have are just so far off or whatever that don't represent like even the closest cross section. I think that when you don't have these examples, that's definitely what I'm talking about. It's like I don't know, I don't see it, I don't believe it, and the worst is if you're young and gay and you're in areas that are very religious and you constantly have the messages that tell you that what you are is wrong.
Right.
And like, hello, I'm trying to fit in, I'm trying to survive, and it usually is survival. So I am going to not like as much the irony of or as much as it would make sense to kind of fight through that and be true to who you are, being true to who you are in the face of, you know, yeah, that idea of standing alone, even standing up for yourself, even if you stand alone, is not as easy as it sounds.
Well, what just occurred to me is that I feel like it's like speaking one's mind is very situation specific. So, for example, in professional settings, I'm very good at like speaking my mind, right? Because I've learned how to do that over a long period of time, and I've been exposed to people who I've either like modeled or who've like mentored me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, which to me raises the point that I think you were making, which is in some situations we don't know how to say what we like, to express what needs we have, right? Like the big one for me is like, so I have, are you familiar with like attachment theory? So there's like different forms of relationship attachment. There's like anxious, avoidant, disorganized. And so if you come from like a pretty chaotic background like I do, you're very likely to develop an anxious attachment, right? And what I've noticed as a result of that is that because of like my relation, more like my issues with like relating to other people, that it's been in interpersonal situations that have been very difficult for me to express what my needs and my wants are, right? Or what my fears are. Historically, because when I was a child and I did that, it wasn't like it wasn't being heard, right? Like, in fact, I have like this is so sad. I don't even know why I'm sharing this on the air, but like one of the things, and my relationship with my family is very different these days. We've all grown, but I remember when I was a kid and I would cry, my mom would deliberately tell me, she would say in Spanish, like, cry because you don't cry blood, which was to say you're not going to die from crying, right? And so I wasn't consoled, I was left to cry, right? Or if I was angry or upset about something, I wasn't consoled, I was made to like just deal, and part of that has to do with like growing up. There was this idea that because I was raised by my grandmother, and the idea was, it was like this old school way of thinking, like, well, you're raising a man, this is how you raise a man, you raise him to be like tough. But when really what you raise me to do is to like internalize all of my like, and not express my, I mean, it was just so horrible. And it's been through recovery that I've like learned to like talk about things and like therapy and stuff like that. But the takeaway here is that I didn't have context for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't have context for that. And it wasn't until I started surrounding myself with people who made that safe for me, where I could start to experiment by saying like, hey, that hurt me.
Absolutely.
Or like, hey, I have this fear.
Absolutely.
Did we have a comment?
We have a comment.
Yeah, let's see it.
Jaylon. I think as a result of working the majority of my steps, I've gotten to a place where my point doesn't need to be validated, but I'm not mad when it is. That's a bonus. I naturally examine people's intent when they are talking, so I truly believe people know what their motives are when bringing something up in a conversation. Those are the bitches I watch out for. Exactly. Thank you. And I agree with you. I have, because of the work that I've done, I've gotten to a place where it's not that it needs to be validated, but in not being in a conversation with somebody who is unable to validate, that is information. That's good information, because like I was saying before, there are conversations I don't have with certain people. Like if I talk to you and you gaslight and you don't allow for the possibility that I believe what I'm saying and that maybe there's some validity to it, then I don't need to be in that conversation with you. But it's like, I don't need you to validate it, but you not validating tells me a story.
I feel like that maybe like one of the maybe kind of the unspoken thing here is like, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that I want by sharing this thing about myself? Or like, what is it, right? Because I remember when I was coming out, I remember reading this book, and it was called Why Am I Blue? Are you familiar with it? It's a really cute book. It was written, I think, for like gay teens.
I was never a gay teen.
Oh,
no, I didn't come out till later.
Oh, when did you come out?
I came out when I was 28.
28.
28, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
No, is it?
Well, it's cool. Well, I think it's cool, but just because
I didn't know. I completely had no idea. I think in retrospect, looking back, some of the issues that I had, I equated them to other things. They were clearly gay issues, but I just dismissed them as something else and processed them that way and made it through. Thank God.
Yeah. So to that point, so coming out, what I remember reading was like, we come out. Well, it's kind of like one of the things Bonnie Violet actually phrased it as like inviting in, as opposed to coming out. Bonnie Violet, shout out to Bonnie Violet.
Yeah, totally. She's gonna be on next week, huh?
Is she?
Is it next week?
Is it?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
next
man,
week.
she's on next week. Oh, right, for
Hey.
the Pride.
For the Pride. Yeah.
For the Pride. So, but anyway, so coming out, the takeaway was that we share things about ourselves when we stand to benefit,
Yeah.
right? Like I am sharing this thing with you because I want to get closer.
Ooh, that's
you
hot.
know what I mean?
Seriously?
Or like, or I want to like when we're establishing boundaries with people, right? Like I'm sharing this thing with you because I want to preserve our relationship.
Well, what happens? Okay, so you were what you were sharing just a few minutes ago, which was pretty heavy.
Mm.
I don't know that was the same motive. Like,
just now?
Like, because while you were sharing, I was thinking truth serum.
Yeah.
Like almost it was like it just came bubbling to the surface, and it was almost as if it was time, and you didn't have to have a, you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
What a spiritual, like that's a very kind of spiritual thing that I feel like you're saying. Yeah, I don't know. I have to admit, like right in this moment, I'm feeling really emotional, and I think it's a combination of like the conversations we were having before this, and
the lights,
probably. I'm just feeling really tender. I think I'm feeling really tender because I think maybe what's happening is like I just feel so grateful that I'm at a place in my life right now where like I actually ask for what I want.
Yeah.
And like I'm actually being honest about like how I feel. And that to me is like it's so terrifying, And part of what's been helpful for me related to that is like just understanding like where all of those blocks came from.
Absolutely.
And similarly, like I'm also I feel really grateful because I have wonderful people in my life who like are inviting that, who are like
absolutely.
who like learn stuff about me and like want more.
Well, I think
of me.
It's like chicken or the egg, because I think it's the work that we do, like in becoming more honest and more authentic or whatever, that attracted those people.
Yeah.
Like I believe that the universe gives you exactly what you need. When we were being shady as hell, we found ourselves being surrounded by shady people.
Shady ass people.
But when I'm trying to be my honest, authentic self and accept my flaws and everything, I am getting to be surrounded by other people working through the same things. One of the things that I struggled with before, like I would always find myself in situations where I was really resentful of the people I was around. And what I realized, it was because I was showing up and being for them what I thought they wanted me to be.
Right.
And I wasn't speaking up. And something as basic as doing the fun things I want to do. Like if I wanted to go, back then we didn't have escape rooms, but if I wanted to go to an escape room, I would not have suggested it because I didn't want anybody to poo-poo that idea.
Yeah.
But what would end up happening is I would be around these people, and after a while I'd get resentful because I realized, wait a minute, it's like I'm doing this for you, and it's very clear that we don't have the same kind of relationship. And it took me a really long time to get to the place where I was like, oh man, you know what? And this is where it's tough sometimes, because when my mom passed away, I didn't realize that I experienced that level of abandonment that comes with that. And then my father remarried, and none of it was at me or anything, but the way I processed it was like, I'm being, I was slipping in a dark place, and the way I was handling it was like, I am being, people are leaving me, and that's what I can expect. And so most of my addiction, I would not speak up. I would not challenge anyone because I didn't want to lose people. Even if these people were the worst for me, it didn't matter because I didn't want people to leave me. And nowhere was it more transient in that, in my active addiction, moving to San Francisco, being around people who were not, not always, didn't always have my best interest because they didn't have their own best interest. So that was a tough one for me.
You know what? I think when people kind of censor themselves, I'll speak for myself. Like if I censor myself, I think maybe, okay, this is complicated, right? So what I'm thinking of is maybe not just like centering myself in like everyday conversation, but I think about like, okay, if I have this, if I have something that I need to get off of my chest or something that's like weighing on me, right? And I think maybe there's an idea like, oh, you know what? By keeping this to myself, I'm actually increasing connection. I'm preserving connection with other people. When in fact, I don't think that's what's happening. I think what's happening is like you might on the surface be preserving a connection, but really what's happening is you've just distanced yourself internally.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like you push yourself so far away from the people that you're trying to connect to.
Absolutely. And you rob yourself and them of possibly having a much deeper connection.
You rob, yeah. And I think that's the other part of that is like, and you rob yourself for, you know, one of the best things that comes from telling the truth is that when you tell the truth, you allow for people to respond to it.
Oh, absolutely.
And if people are not able to handle it,
yeah,
then they
act
remove
accordingly.
themselves.
Yeah, they remove
And what
themselves.
you've just done is you've just created room for more people.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
or for more like better experiences. You know, one of the things I struggled with when I found out I was HIV positive was, I think I don't know if I've ever shared this on air before, but when I first found out I was HIV positive, there were these two guys who had found out about my status, and they went on like this vendetta to like basically use my status to terrorize me. They created fake accounts on Adam for Adam, OkCupid, Craigslist, Grinder. They created using all of my pictures that I had on Facebook when I had Facebook at the time. They gave out my mailing address, my phone number. They contacted people at my school.
That's illegal.
I mean,
now, isn't it?
it's
Doxing?
illegal now.
Yeah.
They contacted my family. I mean, it was horrible. It was this very horrible experience. And I was so afraid of what the world was going to do to me, you know? And I was just, well, one, I was like angry and hurt because I was like, well, I can't believe that like literally my status is being used to terrorize me. And I live in fucking the East Bay, you know? And where am I going with that? So at some point, I thought, fuck this. Like, fuck this. The reason why this is terrorizing me is because it's my own shame. It's my own shit. And so what I started to do is like, I started to seek people out who were also pos, you know? And at the time I started working for an HIV AIDS youth clinic. So I was working with HIV positive youth, newly diagnosed or long-term. And I started doing interviews where I was like disclosing my status. And I made my status very public because I was like, fuck all of this. You know what I mean? And part of that was like learning how to disclose my status when I was like dating. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I learned really early on was that like, yeah, in the immediate, when I disclosed my status and someone had like a really shitty response, yeah, that might hurt because it feels like I'm being rejected. But I think the other thing that I learned from that was like, no, I am learning what kind of person this is.
Absolutely.
You know, like in this situation, this was before PrEP too, you know, like in this situation, like this is not information, or this is not information this person knows how to metabolize. And okay, well, you know, this could be like a proxy for something else, you know?
Yeah.
And go ahead, what were you going to say?
No, I was just saying, I think it's amazing that you were able to do that, because it's like trying to kind of come to terms with your diagnosis and all of the trauma around the choice, and then to be able to take that action. Wow.
You know, I feel, that's actually when I first started getting sober. Mm-hmm. That was like the turning point for me. The turning point for me was like after I had found out that I was HIV positive. That's when I thought, okay, maybe. It was a little thought was like, oh, maybe my drinking and using is getting out of control.
Sometimes that's all it takes is that little sliver of like, oh, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. If you're listening to, it looks like our camera is off. We have 10 minutes left.
No, that's just.
I don't know. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
It's funny. We've been experiencing some trouble.
Technical difficulties,
but it hasn't stopped us. It's like
it hasn't stopped us. If folks are watching us and we look pixelated, that's what's happening. But the audio is just fine.
No, we don't look pixelated. Our little this. Yeah.
Oh, our like prompter thing.
So you know
what?
We only have like 10 minutes, but something else that with regards to speaking your mind that I think is a challenge. Like we kind of talked about it a little. It's when you find your voice or whatever, and you steamroll.
Mhm.
And I believe, and I had to learn this hard way. It's like, just because it's my truth or I feel like I can say it doesn't mean I always need to say it. And I think we talked about this a little. I don't get to go to everybody and speak my mind. I don't get to go to everybody and tell my truth. Sometimes it's my intentions are malicious, whether or not I know it or not, or they are a part of shit that I'm going through, like my controlling nature, those character defects that come rising to the surface. And I had to learn the hard way that if it's not solicited, don't give it, because
Straight up. Mhm.
it's one of those things where it's like, uh, my experience, strength, and hope can't always help everybody.
Straight up. One of the things my sponsor does this, I do this whenever I'm talking to a friend, I always say, do you want me just to listen or do you want to hear what I'm thinking?
Absolutely.
And that has, I think that like say part of that for me too is like sometimes you ever like talk to a friend and you're like going through it and then you get all this unsolicited advice and it's like, girl, I never asked for any of that.
I know,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? Like you don't think I weighed these options?
I know.
You don't
I thought about it. It's
yeah, like I just needed someone to like hear me out. And but that's part of it too, is like, listen, I just need you to hear me right now.
yeah,
But that's a skill set, right? Like that's something like we learn how to do.
absolutely,
Absolutely.
absolutely. I think that like the gift of like being able to kind of speak about what is closest to your heart when it is necessary, it is so important. I think it is a big part of my journey of discovery, of self-discovery. It's great for my self-esteem because since I've been doing it and doing it more, I find that there are more people who are interested in me for who I am
Mm.
and who love me and accept me for who I am. And it's also got me to the place where it's like, if there are people who aren't okay with that, I don't have to be all hostile towards them. I just lovingly let them go and do their thing. And I'm okay if we're not good. If we because I can't get along or be everything for everybody. And if I'm trying, I'm missing out on trying to be that for me. And I need to be that for me right now.
I love that, Louis. I feel like it's been in the rooms where actually it's been in the rooms that that's when I had the first experiences of people like my actually feeling loved by friends.
Absolutely.
Like really feeling like, oh, like really like seen and like appreciated and people like enjoying like what your idiosyncrasies are, like and that
appreciating the differences and
Mhm.
appreciating and like we're all drawn to each other. It's like you and I, we don't have that much in common, but I think we probably do.
We have so much
have
in
so much
common. What are you
no,
talking
no,
about?
but like I was saying, it's like to find people that you absolutely adore and that you trust and you can but it's opened my mind to thinking about life and things in so many different ways. And I think that that's how we get better. We grow, we expand our thinking, we invite in ideas, yes, we don't limit ourselves anymore.
You know what's on my mind right now?
What's on your mind?
But have you heard that song yet?
Who sings that?
Kylie Minogue.
I don't
It's
know
like
that song.
it's
I've been
supposed
hear-
to be the
I've
gay
been-
anthem.
I've been hearing
I know
that,
y'all
but
have heard it.
I've been
Steven, Brandon.
I saw like but
Ba-dum.
I saw it, but I was just like I haven't listened to
That
it.
just slaps. I love it.
I like that.
I hate it so much.
See, now
I do. I really like it. It's like one of those. There hasn't been a summer song like this in a long time. Steven, do you like it? Do you know it? The Kylie Minogue. You don't have to like it. We just talked about speaking your mind. But there,
I'm gonna tell you I like it because I want you to like me.
But I just love
Steve,
intoxicating.
Yeah, if you don't know Steven, you have to know Steven is how we were talking about Patrick. Steven's another
another patron saint.
Patron saint.
We were talking about
yeah.
sainthood in the
sainthood
rooms.
in the rooms because there are very few of us.
Okay, hold on. I want to go back to having my gay moment. So like this song by Kylie Minogue.
Your every moment is gay. I'm sorry.
No, but my pride moment. This is about pride. That's what I meant to get out of my face. So this is supposed to be like this from what I hear, Padam that's the name of the song. I think it's actually two Padams, right?
Yeah,
it's supposed to be the gay song of like the like pride. It's
What is it
supposed to
about?
be. It's about like being attracted to someone and like your Padam is your heartbeat. That's like the
Oh God.
it's so good. Okay, but like here's the other part of this. I low-key think that the reason why it's so popular is because it has remnants of the Blackout album, Britney Spears' Blackout album. I've never talked about this shit in public, but the Blackout album that also slapped.
This is important. This is important.
It's Pride Month.
Anthony's practicing courage. He's speaking his mind, and even though afterwards I'm going to be like, "What? Come on, check, please."
The Blackout album. Listen, I'm not even like a big Britney Spears fan, but I remember that album because it was so good. I forget who produced it. I think it was Timberland. It was so good, but this song I haven't heard from Kylie Minogue in what, like,
I know,
fucking 5 years, and she pulls this out, and it's just been
I'm going to listen to it now.
It's like there are memes about it. There's like people talk about how like addictive the chorus is.
Absolutely. So
made it into
we've reached the end of
the visual part of
you know what would really help this is if once Brandon wanted us to move forward, he would just flash it on the screen.
Oh yeah, because sometimes we're like stalling until he gets off his phone so he can see that we're like ready to start closing up.
Brandon's looking at porn. It's like,
hold on. I just got a text from someone who said, "You look pixelated as fuck." Listen, we already explained that we're having issues with the camera. We don't know. And right now, Brandon even told us that we're like on standard. What is it? Brandon, what's it called? Standard. He just put up that thing he wants me to say.
The Castro Country Club is a safe and sober community center for all people and a refuge for the LGBTQ recovery community.
We provide programs and services that help people change their lives by supporting personal growth.
Our vision is to reduce the suffering of addiction by connecting people to community, opportunity, and support.
You can find more information, including all the ways to contact us, at www.castrocountryclub.org/podcast.
Yes, and tune in every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when we go live at our Castro Country Club Facebook and YouTube channels.
Find us wherever you listen to podcasts.
Thank you so much for watching our pixelated presence.
And remember that if you're listening to us online, or rather right now, there's an additional 15 minutes of content that you can only get online. So that's it.
What you can only get on.
Am I saying that? Yeah.
One of the sites where you listen.
Listen to podcasts. Yeah. That's it. Okay. All right.